welcome, everybody. This is going to be, as I said, Ms. Polito is not here, so we're going to have a very one-on-one debate. The rules are very simple, and there are only a few things you have to keep in mind. Number one, on your table you have official question form. If you have questions for either candidate, not for the moderator, besides, I have, as the president of the university knows, I have tenure, and therefore I don't have to answer any question. Right, Mush? Way beyond that. But so write it down, and we'll have Teresa or Tweed pick them up. But this is how it's going to start. We're going to have each candidate will have a opening statement, 90 seconds. The status of my campaign as of today is. We are going to have, after that, the moderator will ask each candidate a question. They will have 90 seconds to respond. Then each candidate will ask each other a question. Normally you have to draw who asks who, but for two candidates takes that out of the play.
Rock, paper, scissors?
What? No rock, paper, scissors, no. Some of our debates, that would have been an upgrade. Number 4, we have then questions from the audience. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer the question, and his opponent will have 60 seconds to respond. And then we'll simply have the closing, where each candidate will say, why am I the best candidate for the Illinois 5th Congressional District? Those are the rules, whether you like them or not. So, since we don't have Mike Bauer here to give us his official card so we can have the drawing, why don't we just go in alphabetical order? And Mike Quigley, why don't you have 90 seconds to answer the question, the status of my campaign as of today is, and you can, right from the microphone.
Thank you.
Oh, God. And counting for the knockdowns at the bell, Joyce Saxon. That's the 30 seconds, and then stop. All right. Sorry, Joyce. As I said, Mike, you lost half your time already, but nevertheless, the clock will start now.
She reminds me that my parking meter is running down. Does anyone have 400 quarters? You know, it was interesting. We had the first debate at DePaul a couple months ago in this race, and what I said then is pretty much true now. We had just finished a presidential campaign in which the man who won was the man who talked about hope we can believe in, change we can believe in. I don't think much has changed since that time. The president has said it's only just begun. And he's only been in office 3 months, and those extraordinary challenges that we face are still there. Change made sense when he ran for president because of the war in Iraq, because of the economy, because of bad choices on a woman's right to choose and the environment. Many of those issues still haven't played out. And we have to be there, prepared to take the same fights. I said then, and I believe now, that I am the candidate for change, have been the catalyst for change most effectively. I believe, despite the fact that we had a very talented, crowded Democratic field, we were able to win by several thousand votes because this was the time when voters in Illinois, weary of Blago Burris and so many other issues, tax hikes that hurt working families, they believed us most. And with that support, we'll win next Tuesday.
Very good. Yep.
As far as the status of my campaign goes, this is a very serious Green Party candidacy. That I was recruited by the Green Party because I know how to campaign. I have experience working across the aisle. Worked with the Kucinich for President campaign and the Kucinich re-election campaign in Cleveland. I've also worked for Republican Ron Paul. I supported his presidential bid last year. So I've worked with a variety of people. I take principle over party, and I'm a very aggressive campaigner. We're out getting the yard signs up there. We're out knocking on doors and addressing the issues that the other candidates aren't addressing. The opposition to the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, opposition to these banker bailouts, and universal single-payer health care, Medicare for all Americans. Thank you.
That's it. Okay, well, listen, you're making Joyce's job a lot easier. All right, number 2, question from the moderator. And since we only have 2, I'm going to give each of you the same question. And Matt, you'll start first. The question is very simple. If you had been a congressman in the last few months, would you have supported President Obama's budget and stimulus package? And if so, why? And if not, why? You have 90 seconds.
I would have opposed both. The budget is in the red. The country's already over $10 trillion in the red. And this deficit spending, this debt spending is threatening to throw us into depression and create one of the most fantastic economic collapses in the history of the modern world. We have to balance the budget. We have to find funding where it exists. And if we're going to spend on public works projects, it has to come from Pentagon bloat. And that's why I support cutting military spending by 50% over the next 5 years, which will easily be done by auditing the Pentagon. Stop spending $5,000 for toilet seats. Stop spending money on the missile defense system, which hasn't even been proven to work. Cut down our nuclear stockpile. Get out of Iraq. Get out of Afghanistan. Then we're going to have hundreds of billions of dollars to invest in infrastructure and education here domestically. But deficit spending, more printing out money that out of thin air, that's not going to solve anything. So I would have opposed both the budget and the stimulus plan. The key thing needs to be not bailing out financial institutions whose greed created this mess. It has to be bailing out the people, and that means job creation, job creation. There needs to be a focus on creating 10 million jobs across the country, good union jobs, green jobs, revitalizing our public transit, investing in alternative forms of energy. That needs to be the focus of stimulus. Thank you.
Mike?
First, I think the president said, and I supported the president. I was a delegate for the president in Denver. But he said that these processes are a process. They're going to take a while. So I support the president's budget. I support the stimulus package. He recognizes that I'm the type of person who is going to point out what else we need to do and how we need to do things differently. He invited Congress to go through the budget page by page through the course of the year to find ways to save money. I was there in Denver when the president said, an 18th century bureaucracy cannot handle today's complex problems. He said we need to reinvent, restructure, streamline, and consolidate government. And my amazing staff sitting throughout the audience helped me write 8 reports in the last 10 years just how to do that. Reinvent, streamline, consolidate government, make it more effective. We also talked for 10 years about transparency. The president acknowledged the problem with the first TARP bailout package was it lacked transparency. It was obvious because we didn't know where the money went or who got it or how it was spent, and the same problem took place with AIG. The president recognizes those problems, and I'll work with him to solve them.
Okay, moving right along. Boy, we don't have a lot of candidates this time to catch the 1 o'clock news. Part 3. This is where each candidate asks the other candidate a question, and since, Matt, you were the last person, you will ask a question to Matt. Your question can only be 30 seconds long, and Matt, you'll have 90 seconds to respond.
Who asked the question?
You do.
Oh. Well, I guess I was tempted to say Cubs or White Sox, show your work. But I guess given the serious nature of what's happening in the world, I do want to touch on this. One area we seem to disagree on is our relationship with Israel. You did state, I think it was on your blog, you can correct me if it's wrong, that you support cutting off aid to Israel, and that you wrote the Israelis have a fetish with security, and that the U.S. officials who go there learn how to manage an apartheid state. I mean, was I reading that correctly?
You have 90 seconds to answer.
That is accurate. Now, I met with AIPAC shortly after announcing my candidacy, literally within a week of filing with the FEC. AIPAC called me up. This is the American-Israeli Political Action Committee, and talked with me. And there's a few points I want to make that they made with me. Firstly, Israel refuses any humanitarian aid, and I would support humanitarian aid, getting food to where there's no food, getting shelters to where there's no shelter. But they refuse that aid. They take only military aid. And that military aid goes into running what essentially is an apartheid state. Even worse, Palestinians living in Israel, living in the occupied territories, have to go through checkpoints to get to work, have to go to checkpoints to get out to the land that they're working. It's actually, in that way, worse than what you saw in South Africa. There's an Arab member of the Knesset, but that's to demonstrate, in my mind, that oh no, we are open. This is a liberal democratic state. You look at the record; they are on a decades-long offensive against the Palestinian people. There's a lot of dismay towards the United States regarding our position on Israel. We can improve relations with our traditional European allies and other countries throughout the world by taking a stance and cutting off this aid to Israel.
Okay, you have 30 seconds to ask Mr. Quigley a question.
All right. Well, I'm been an activist in Chicago for a long time, so I'm tapped into a lot of activist circles, and I know that Mr. Quigley met with a group of healthcare activists about a week ago who attempted to push him on the issue of single-payer health care, the same Medicare for all, the same health coverage that they have in every other industrialized country on earth. The only way you can cover everybody and keep costs down. Why won't you get on board with this?
Well, I think I agree with the president, and I think I agree with what I think the American public wants, and that's not to tear down a system that a lot of people are very happy with. A lot of folks like their health care benefits and their programs, and they don't trust government to operate it efficiently. I think the president made the right move getting more kids covered in one of his first acts as president of the United States, and we have to move in that direction. I think the most important thing the next congressman can do working with the president is to revive our economy, because when you talk to people about losing their jobs, they're not talking about single payer, they're talking about not having any health care benefits, and we need to move in that direction to protect those folks first. And if you don't, there's not any amount of money that will provide enough funds for single-payer health care. It's just not in the cards.
All right. Now I have 4 questions. Anyone else have a question to write down? Teresa, though it is kind of the time of the year where having 4 questions is in vogue, but little slight humor there during the pause. No need to have comments. Remember, I have my current student and former students in this room. They will defend their professor, maybe. All right. First question, we'll go to Matt. Matt, this is from Moni Terry. Although we need to protect our borders, what reform on immigration would you support so employers needing immigrant workers would not be penalized? You have 90 seconds.
Well, as far as immigration goes, I'm supportive of, thank you, supportive of amnesty for all so-called illegal immigrants here, because I think we approach this question the wrong way. Because first and foremost, there are no illegal human beings. Everybody has the right to life, and they have the right to live happily and to be provided for. In the long run, I support going at this not after the illegal immigrants, but after the employers. People are coming here because they can find employment. Companies are putting people to work illegally. We need to prosecute these companies, these corporations that willingly hurt American workers by employing illegal immigrants and driving our labor standards down. So we need to get stricter enforcement, not at the borders. Cut it off at the supply side. Cut it off by penalizing companies that employ illegal immigrants. And in the long run, I also support repealing NAFTA, canceling the WTO, these trade regimes that ensure that developing countries remain dependent on the United States so that people have to continue to flood here to look for jobs. Thank you.
You have 60 seconds, Mike, to respond.
Well, I support Senator Durbin's DREAM Act. I support comprehensive immigration reform. I do believe we need to protect our borders now more than ever because of the drug cartel issues. But I don't think that's in any way punitive toward the immigration issue. I think that's more of a security issue for residents of Mexico and the United States.
Okay, this next question comes from Kevin, who happens to be a 5th Congressional District resident. So sharpen up. That's a great question, too. And I want to hear the answer to this one. This one goes to you, Mike. Resident of the 5th Congressional District, what can you do about fixing potholes in the city, even though it's not a federal issue? I told you it was going to be a toughie.
Well, you know, it's interesting. Part of the stimulus plan will deal with public works issues, and if some of that addresses the pothole issue, that's fine. But in the end, I think what we can do is help government address broader economic issues that they're dealing with so that they have more resources. There's not going to be any federal trucks filling potholes, folks. But if we can help with a stimulus package that has a long-term effect, like rebuilding our transit program, hopefully the city will have more of its own resources to fill potholes on a timely basis. And I suppose addressing global warming will deal with our dramatic climate issues and have fewer potholes. But all that being said, a stimulus package must be a long-term project that is a long-term paying off, and as a result, it must have long-term benefits. And if we rebuild the red line and the blue line and so forth, we can help attract the Olympics, we can help attract economic development, create jobs, get people to and from their jobs for long periods of time, reduce pollution, reduce dependence on foreign oil. So I guess the bottom line is, in a circuitous question, is if we have a good, solid stimulus package, we can help cities address all their other issues, and we can deal with long-term issues as well.
Okay, you have 60 seconds.
Well, the focus of my candidacy is green works projects, putting people to work making the country more green. So there's a big focus on public transportation. I keep saying that Chicago's public transit was actually better about 60, 70 years ago when we had the cable cars running through the city. And, of course, the automobile lobby ensured that we made room for the automobile. You should be able to live in any major city without a car. You can do it in Europe. I lived in Paris, didn't drive a car for 3 years, and it was not remotely an inconvenience. And as Commissioner Quigley mentioned, it'll be good for business. It'll attract business. It'll make Chicago a more attractive city if we have a functioning public transit system where you do not have to rely on the automobile. So putting people to work, and obviously if we have less reliance on the automobile, the pothole problem is going to be a lot worse during the winter, or a lot better during the winter months.
Okay, this question is for you, Matt.
We call them streetcars, not cable cars.
Oh, yeah.
Ms. Saxon, you are not a candidate. But thank you for the clarification.
She could have been during the primary. There were so many.
You might not even know the difference with so many of them. All right, this question goes to Matt. It's from Jeff Riley. Matt, why do you oppose Chicago's Olympic bid?
Well, I oppose the Olympic bid. This goes back to what I mentioned earlier about fiscal prudence. We're over $10 trillion in debt. When we start counting the bailouts, it's going to be closer to $20 trillion. Where do we have the money to host the Olympics? When I'm in the Congress, I'm going to fight to cancel the American Olympic bid until we work out our economic mess. We don't have the money. Hosting the Olympics is a luxury. And when you're in recession, sliding quickly into depression, you can't afford to, play games. Honestly, it's as simple as that.
Mr. Quigley, 60 seconds.
If done inappropriately, Olympic bids can drain money, important resources from any city. But I think the administration in Chicago has the right idea. They recognize that the public in Chicago overwhelmingly supports having the Olympics here. I can't think of a city in the world that's more spectacular and deserves the Olympics more than the city of Chicago. But I do think they're being careful on how these resources will be spent. And I do think that's a finger on the pulse of Chicagoans. I would only agree that the public doesn't want to lose money on the Olympics, but they are excited about hosting.
Okay. This question is for you, Mike. This is from Chester. I think you could throw me off on this name, right? Kruppet. Well, it's a spelling. How do you pronounce your last name, Chester? That's right. This is from my new best pal, Chester. This is to you, Mr. Quigley. Your thoughts on the appointment of Roland Burris. Should we have had an election?
We should have had an election. There should be a process in Illinois for special elections for all vacancies. I think that's what the public wants. I would only add to that the public needs to show how much they want special elections. If you don't like what happened with Blagojevich Burris, come out and vote during special elections. It matters. It shows the folks in Springfield, it shows the folks in the city council, it shows the folks everywhere, hey, we want to have a voice in who represents us at all levels of government. I think for the senator it was a mistake to accept this. Obviously it was a mistake to have the appointment made in the first place, but it is only part of a larger problem of what's taking place in Illinois. And I think Governor Quinn's panel has done a good job establishing the first set of reforms that need to take place. I think the selection process after people like the senator leave and after people like I hopefully leave needs to be open and transparent, and I think the best way to do that is to have a special election.
Matt, your comment, 60 seconds.
Well, obviously the cost of special elections is very high. The primary on March 3rd for this seat ended up costing $33 per voter. So there was some suggestion of doing mail-in special elections, which is something I'd probably support in the long run. As far as filling a vacancy where you have the minority of the mandate left, in this case the final 2 years, being filled by appointments, if the appointment process is transparent and we can trust the guy doing the appointment, doesn't really bother me because it's just a matter of logistics. So, in the long run, I'm not really opposed to the current arrangement, but of course, once Blagojevich was on the verge of being impeached and still appointed Roland Burris, we shouldn't have accepted that and should have found some means of canceling out that nomination and holding a special election in this very special case scenario.
Okay. Next question is from John Lee. In an effort to increase transparency in government, would you support either the disclosures or the disclosure or the elimination of budget earmarks? Either the disclosure or the elimination of budget earmarks. I guess the question will just make it, what's your position on earmarks? Matt, up to you again.
Well, again, what I've been emphasizing with this candidacy is fiscal prudence, and the Green Party can reach out to conservatives on this in this way because we don't believe in deficit spending, because overspending empowers banking institutions. It funnels wealth upwards and gives inordinate power to the top 1%, the top 0.5%. So part of this is transparency with the budget, make the budgeting process a public process, so that this is published in newspapers. It's like a public auditing process, and but by doing this, you're going to see a lot less of this corrupt spending, a lot less of this bringing home the loot. I mean, we're out there. You're elected congressperson to represent the working people of your district, not to bring home money. We have to get out of this way of thinking with American politics. We should be out there focusing on jobs, focusing on education, focusing on long-term economic and ecological sustainability, and not what did you bring back to the district. It's this mentality that creates corruption and creates dirty politics, creates Blagojeviches in the United States.
Mike?
Well, I think the president's beginning process on reforming earmarks were to limit the total amount and to have an oversight process, and that makes a lot of sense. I think you can add to that the way an individual member of Congress handles their oversights. I think there should be disclosure. I think there should be a increased input from the communities of what they need across the entire district. I think that will help a great deal. But if you're the only member of Congress saying, I'm not going to ask for any earmarks, there will be 434 other members of Congress saying, great, we'll take what you don't want. And your district members, the people who live in your district will be plenty unhappy with you. This doesn't all have to be bridges to nowhere. These can be green earmarks. These can be educational earmarks. These can be earmarks that deal with much-needed transit projects. And in literally the days after this primary race, Alderman Lorino was walking me through blocks and blocks of her ward, which have been devastated by flooding. She needs those resources to keep people in their homes and for their safety.
Okay. I'm glad to hear that. Right, Bush? Our ancestral home. This is from Rosalie. I can't pronounce your last name. That's one of the great B's of all time, let me tell you. Anyways, Rosalie Brown. Mike, this is to you. Hey, this is not a roast. Rosalie Brown. Mike Quigley, your reaction to Pat Collins' Reform Commission. And you could really make news if you say you're against it.
Well, as I think I said before, it's a good first step. We're here with some members of the clergy. I'll begin by saying this to the voters of Illinois. As long as they keep making us out of flesh and blood, we will have people who disappoint us, no matter how great the laws are. So I would only encourage the voters to seek out electeds who take this sacred trust that is elected office seriously, and that they're in it for the greater good and not their own. And to the extent that they can possibly do that beginning in 2010, we're going to have a better process. Changing the rules, as the Quinn proposals suggest, is absolutely critical and overdue. I think in the end, what did they say in Watergate? Follow the money. And you're going to have to limit the extraordinary amounts of money that can currently in Illinois go to people as campaign contributions to get government work. That's the pay-for-play they're trying to eliminate. To the extent that the Quinn process began that, that's where it will succeed or fail. Whether the General Assembly takes that seriously and passes those initiatives will tell us where reform goes for the next 10 years.
Matt, you have 60 seconds to respond.
The root problem in American politics is the dependence of elected officials or political candidates on political donations. It's institutional bribery. And in order to succeed in the political arena, you have to take contributions from corporations, which of course I don't as a Green Party candidate. In order to cleanse our political process, we need comprehensive election reform. This means publicly financed elections like you see in essentially all other westernized democracies. This Obama election, he raised more money than any other political candidate in the history of the country, nearly, if you count the primary and the general election, nearly $1 billion. That's economic waste. That doesn't do anything to grow the economy, to expand the economy, to create jobs. This is money getting pushed around, spent on advertising, which is waste. It's not good for the economy. It's not good for business. It's not good for the people. We need to move towards comprehensive election reform, and then we'll have honest government.
Okay, we're getting near the end. This is for you, Matt. This is from Mike McMains, a resident of the 5th District. Matt, this is to you. Name the most significant policy position where you differ from the Obama administration. The most significant.
I would say the most significant is my opposition to the ongoing war in Afghanistan as well as Iraq. Obama was elected in large part on the heels of anti-war sentiment. We didn't ask for a democratic war. It's changed from a Republican war to a democratic war. People voted against war. And Dwight Eisenhower once said, I think the people want peace so much that one day the government should get out of their way and let them have it. Now we're at that hour. We're over $10 trillion in debt. We can't afford the war. Whether or not you think we should be out there policing the Middle East, we can't afford it. We've got to bring all the troops home. I'm opposed to that 50,000 residual force in Iraq, and I'm opposed to moving our troops to Afghanistan. Let's get our young men and women home, and let's start investing in a Green Works project. Thank you.
Mike.
Well, as it relates to the issues in Iraq, obviously I agree with the President in getting the troops out of there as quickly as possible. But as it relates to Afghanistan, I think the President is absolutely right, beginning to treat this as a region. And the success in Afghanistan will not happen without a realization of the issues that their neighbor Pakistan has, and dealing with the Taliban strongholds there, that if we don't address those, we're not going to have success in the region at all. And refocusing our mission on those threats to our homeland and our allies.
Okay, the last question goes to you, Mike, and this is from Mike Gonzalez. The question is a very significant one. How does one congressman make a difference?
It was funny when a little somewhat melancholy leaving the county board, although you sit through a meeting, you go, oh, when do I go? Well, it's not all done, and that I regret in some respects not being there to an extent finish the job. But I could see people in the audience who would be great at doing just that. But when I went to the county board, folks told me, if you go there, they'll never hear from you again. Meaning it was sort of a body that no one paid attention to, and it didn't really do anything important. And with my friends like Forrest Claypool and Larry Sufford, and we turned the lights on and made some real changes. I have hope. I have a belief in my country and my staff and in my efforts that we can make a difference as the 434th ranked member of Congress, that you can still make a difference and that everyone matters, and that my constituents will let me do nothing short of that.
Who's 435 if you'd be 434?
Apparently there is a special in California as well. And by the way, there is this election in New York has been delayed, so I say look out 433.
Great line. All right, I'm sorry. Man, you have 6. Try it. I'll give you extra time for that to respond. How does one person make a difference?
Well, people ask, what are you going to do as one Green Party member of the Congress? And my response is, firstly, the doors will be open. This will be a huge news story. The media lens is going to be on me if I win on Tuesday as America's first Green congressman. People are going to say, how is he navigating this? How is he creating coalition? And I envision working very closely with the Progressive Democratic Caucus to address the issue of getting out of Afghanistan, single-payer health care, but then, to differ from them and push them further on the issue of election campaign finance reform. I learned from one of the best, Mr. Kucinich, who I think is by far the best member of Congress. He single-handedly shut down the war in the former Yugoslavia that was being waged by President Clinton. The vote was very close. The votes were kind of trickling in, and he's delayed, and he said, there's one more vote, and he was waving at nobody in the hallway, saying, one more vote, somebody's coming. And eventually somebody did come in, and we stopped that war. And this is somebody that I believe in a lot, and he's taught me a lot, and I think as a result I'll be a good navigator policy-wise on the floor of the Congress.
Okay, we've now reached the final round. This is the closing statement. Each of you have 90 seconds. The topic is, why am I the best candidate for the Illinois 5th Congressional District? Matt, we start with you.
Well, we're in a time of crisis right now, and that's why I'm running. I'm running as a representation of my generation, the generation that's been left without universal health care, that's been left with rising unemployment, that's been left with perpetual war of empire in the Middle East. And I want to address these issues, and I'm the only candidate running that is committing to bringing all the troops home, shutting down the American imperial presence in the Middle East, that's going to fight for single-payer health care. I'm not only going to co-sponsor H.R. 676, the single-payer bill, as my first act as congressman, I'm going to fight for it on the floor of the Congress and demand that moderate Democrats rise to the occasion. The Democrats are in control of both houses of Congress and the White House. We should have universal health care. What are we waiting for? When are the Democrats going to rise to the occasion and say, we aren't the other party of Wall Street. We aren't the other party of empire. I'm the only candidate addressing these issues and the only candidate that's opposing these bailouts, this enormous spending on the same crooked financial institutions that created this economic mess in the first place, that's preaching financial regulation. Reagan, the Bushes, and Clinton brought us radical deregulation. The whole time the progressive left, the Green Party was saying, this is going to result in our demise, this is going to result in our demise, and here it resulted in our economic demise. We have to bring back the Glass-Steagall Act to separate commercial banking from investment banking. And as well, I propose a Tobin tax, a tax on financial transactions. We'll raise billions of dollars and will prevent some of the most wild speculation that created this mess in the first place.
Okay. Mr. Quigley.
Thank you. This is a special election in name, but it's a special election for other reasons. It is the first election after all the debacles, the scandal du jour, the indictment of the week, the taxes that hurt the working families of our region. And I am the only candidate with a legislative record to change all of that. And let me tell you, it has to be in your DNA. You cannot begin a legislative career thinking that you have the experience to fight against all those things successfully unless you've done it before, unless you've fought against all the special interest. Because I'm aware of how tough they can be in D.C., but as they say in The Untouchables, hey, I'm from Chicago. If you can fight for change in Chicago, you can handle what they dish out in the District of Columbia. And I think our interests are the same. I met with another man who won a special election, Congressman Foster. You know, it was very touching. He said, you know, Mike, if you win, they're going to hand you a voting card, and you're going to walk over and decide what our country does about jobs and justice and the war and the economy and health care and ethics. And no matter who you think you are, you will be an important person, and that burden will rest upon you. I think for 10 years, I've borne that responsibility in the 10th District very well. I've given it my best. So I think the best indicator of future behavior is past behavior. Folks, I've given it everything I have. I will give everything I have to you in the 5th CD. Thank you.
Both candidates. Very good debate. Thank you all. We have incredible parting gifts. Membership in the City Club of Chicago.
Still under the limits?
2 mugs. Believe me, there's no ethics problem here. This goes way under the level. And the History of the City Club of Chicago by Jim Mariner.
Thank you.
We're adjourned. See you all next week.